MGM decided that they wanted to make Species 3, and they approached Frank Mancuso, who was the original producer on the first two.
The guy from MGM called me and said, we want to do a third Species movie, but we're talking about doing it on a direct-to-video basis.
I really liked the original Species movie, and I loved the journey that it took you on. I didn't realize they were planning on doing a third sequel. They called me on the set of another project, and I was very excited about it.
They're like, we're making Species 3, you owe us, so get your ass over here and do it. No.
From the initial Species 1, Natasha played slightly older, and so did the people researching her.
Since we were at a point where we were starting over generationally, we could really reach down and go for these 23 and 24-year-old actors. And I think we've been incredibly lucky. They brought a tremendous intensity and depth to the story.
We went with the college crowd and made the professor a little younger, and we were all on the same page about what we wanted to do with casting.
When you're trying to do a movie that takes a series in a different direction, it's important to be able to address new viewers. And the prime audience for these kinds of movies tends to be younger, and perhaps they weren't as well represented as they needed to be in the earlier ones.
One of the story points about all the movies is that the alien species are essentially naive or innocent. However vicious or violent they may appear. And I think having this very young and very beautiful cast has kind of emphasized that for us.
First person we cast was Sunny. He's basically the lead of the movie.
My agents called me and let me know, about the audition.
We needed somebody that was really endearing, and we found Sunny.
I went in and did the audition, and I actually came out thinking that they hated me. Yeah.
She had the unenviable position of, I think, being one of the first people that we saw.
I came out going, oh my God, the worst.
But that gave me an immediate comfort level because I always knew that she was there.
I actually told my manager, I don't think they liked me. And then she called me back and said, your first choice, and I was shocked.
After Sunny came in, which was very, very early, anybody that came in my head, I was comparing to her.
As we brought other people in, we realized, although they all had strengths in other areas, Sunny was the complete package.
My God, it's tough to go into a film, it's tough to go into a job where you're replacing somebody. It's always awkward and there's a certain amount of pressure. But we joked about it. I said, just walk around and pretend like you don't know what the hell's going on and you'll be fine. That's what I did in the first one.
To think that I'm actually playing her daughter and the fact that I'm taking over the Species role is just really cool.
In these movies, the guys are always tougher in some ways because they kind of have the thankless part of describing the plot to people.
You see that thing there? That contains your eggs. Alien ova, you understand? The half-breeds need it so they can create a viable continuation of their line.
It would be very easy to portray the character of Dean as a bookish, very scientific-minded guy. I think that would probably be the stereotypical way to portray the character.
Robin has a couple of emotional turns that he needs to make that we need to buy into that sort of makes the rest of the story work. So it was really important that we have somebody that can convincingly display those kinds of emotions and at the same time sort of tell the story.
I was happy that Brad had a different idea of making Dean and Hastings normal college guys.
Oh, Jesus, look at her!
Come on, she can't look like that and be a biochemist.
Who cares what she is?
JP was great because he was the guy who really came in, and when we saw him, we saw what the part could be.
Come on, man. I will buy you something nice out of the vending machines.
Thanks.
It's because I like you. Species 3 is about really hot, naked alien babes. Really hot. They're hot.
We kept on trying to figure out other ways to keep him involved in the movie because we just liked his energy so much.
It's really my libido that gets us in trouble. I find a website with a hot alien babe. I email her, one thing leads to another. Next thing you know, she's an alien, we're in trouble. It happens, I'm sure, every weekend on college campuses everywhere.
I came here to get something from you, and you are going to give it to me.
My character's name was Amelia, and I was one of the half-breeds, which meant I was half human, half alien. She's ruthless, she's a bit sadistic, she likes to play with people. She's a little bit twisted. I don't know where it came from.
Robert Nepper plays my professor who saves this alien little girl, and suddenly these half-breed aliens start showing up on his doorstep.
I'm like a star professor at the university. The kind of professor you always wish you'd had.
Behold, nature's most elegant killing machine. Look at it. It's beautiful, isn't it?
His students follow him and want to take his classes, and they all think he's great. They have no idea any of this other stuff's going on. I'm talking about the engineering of a disease-resistant, perfect alien species. Something profound that will assure my place in the pantheon of science. It's been great, because every time I do a scene with him, I go, how can I put a stamp on this? How can I do a little twist, like the thing with the chalkboard with the teacup? You know, I mean, that's not in the script. It's funny how, you know, you just take your imagination and it just goes off.
This film was always going to be a 24p project. It was always going to be on high def.
It was predetermined by the studio to shoot this film on 24p high definition, simply because shooting digital and not having to transfer 35mm film into the digital realm is an incredible time saver, and down the line, of course, a money saver.
Because of the schedule, to me, there was a real appeal to being able to see live action exactly what it is that you were shooting.
In our case, we had two cameras shooting simultaneously. We had two beautiful big 20-inch high-definition monitors, and we could see while filming what the final result would be like. And if a shot would be too bright, too red, too contrasty, whatever, we would adjust it on the set, you know, live almost if you want, adjust it and boom, and we would be done. We would go home at night knowing exactly what we got.
I felt very comfortable walking away from sequences knowing that we had it, as opposed to having to wait for the next day to go to dailies to see if actually the color looks the way we wanted it to, or this or that, or whatever. Those things were important opportunities that high def presented that we wouldn't have had with a traditional film.
It's tricky because we're in an enclosed space and we have all these aliens flying around, you know, on wires with a solid ceiling, and so we need to shoot it all in little bits and pieces and then, you know, rig the wires through the ceiling. And so it's a little tricky in here.
What was fun about it to me was it really put all the pressure back on the story. It put it all on the content. Because you weren't going to be able to spend your way out with effects. You weren't be able to say, well, you know, we'll tell the same story. We'll get this guy to do the monster this time instead of that guy. You know, we'll throw money at it. We'll get some big explosions, and it'll be bigger and better, and all the rest of it. It really sort of made you say, hey, man, you know for sure that if it ain't working on the page, you don't have a movie.
We had a very modest budget on this project. You know, in terms of the original two films, we were probably an eighth of the budget that they had.
I think we've really done well with what it looks like, how it feels. We had a long sequence at a swamp, which couldn't have been better if I'd had 3 times the budget to spend. So we've really set the standard as high as we possibly could for ourselves.
The first thing we did was we pared the script down to where every scene that we're shooting would be in the movie. We also got a visual effects company that has done more low-budget work to work with us, and I think that makes a big difference. And the other thing we did was we got a new prosthetics guy who did a fantastic job, and they both really wanted to do this project because they wanted to be a part of the legacy.
As actors, we've been lucky because we've been able to work with the actual monster on set. You know, there hasn't been a lot of stuff where, you know, they're like, hey, this is the monster, you know, look at the stick and things like that. We haven't done anything like that.
Whether it's smoke tendrils wafting through the air or blood coming out of someone's mouth, they've worked incredibly hard and used their imaginations and really come up with some, I think, some startling creatures.
I think there's a lot of sexual and romantic tension going on throughout the movie.
The reason it's so sexy and there's such a sexual component is because that's how the original species was. This woman was out to procreate with humans and create a new species.
I think it makes it more exciting to watch. Wondering, does she feel anything for him?
Why do you want me?
I just do.
Part of the grace of Natasha in the first movie was there was no concerns whatsoever about her body being presented.
Doing nudity in Species 1 in particular was just so part of the character. It was just so, it was a necessity in the film, I thought. I mean, maybe they could have shot it differently, whatever, you know. Try to get a couple little extra ratings in there, a couple extra tickets sold. But it was just very crucial to the role.
For both the girls, what's crucial is that they have a comfort with themselves, that they have a comfort with their bodies, that they're not going to be sitting there consciously aware of how they're presenting themselves on screen.
I was a little bit scared, but can't get on the set and be like, you know, you say no or you say yes, and if you say yes, you just got to go with it.
As long as they don't have that attachment to their physical form, then that allows them to do what they need to do to make the movie work. If they do become attached to their physical form, we're dead.
I think that women can enjoy this movie because of the strength that our species monsters have. They're intelligent and they're powerful. And so in a lot of ways, I think it's a great chicks flick.
That there's always interest in transformation of characters. You start with this beautiful girl next door who has the ability to sort of turn into this, you know, predator, monster kind of character. There's something inherently interesting about that. There's something that is a fun dynamic to watch.
All of these stories are told over and over again in every film we see, in every television episode. But with science fiction, you can always put a new twist on it. That's the strength of science fiction. It can always be changed by a scientific phenomena that we're not aware of.
The idea of the alien amongst us, that's what really resonates with folks. Not to say that I feel this way all the time, but I do feel occasionally like there's one of those hiding inside of me. And I think maybe that's true of other people too.
That's kind of why we go there. That's kind of the magic of making movies. We go because we want to be placed in a situation that you feel there's some jeopardy and you feel like you're part of.
You never know when this character is going to stop being the character that you perceived them to be and is going to turn into this monster, and then the whole deal's going to change. So that's part of the fun, I think, of what makes the movies unique.
Cameron was our production designer, and he came to the project with a very open mind, and I like that.
Brad had said that he would like to have all the environments appear uncomfortable. Everything was going to be dark and just a little unpleasant, a little eerie in some way.
Sarah, are you in here?
One of the things in this medium you have to be aware of, anything light tends to get overlit. The idea is that the less light you can put on the background, the more opportunities you have with lighting the actors.
You start to think about what you want to do and what it should look like. Our show takes place in Virginia, or the East Coast. We're here in Southern California, so it means that whatever we design and build and think of, we want to make sure it looks more like East Coast architecture. I had done probably 6 different versions of the house, because as you go through the process of showing it to Brad Turner and showing it to Frank Mancuso Jr., they have ideas on how they want it to be a little different. And you change it and you change it, and then the location manager comes up with the real house, and you realize, well, it doesn't look anything like what I did. So you start all over again, redesigning the plan so that it matches the way Brad wants to move his characters, the way Frank sees it, and how it matches the front of the house.
He built the upper part of the house based on the location. The bedroom was a set, and of course the basement.
You're late. Again.
Sorry. Just met Sarah.
He had a lot of ideas about how the lab would look, whether the lab would be a room that was dug out underneath the house, wouldn't have any of the character of the house. He was interesting because we went from there right back to let's just have it look like a basement, and he's thrown equipment into it.
The basement had also been conceived about 6 different versions, because the idea of being here at this soundstage where we are, the original plan was to use standing sets here to save costs. So I did an original version, revamping a standing set here, and after Brad and Frank looked at it, they said, it's too big, it's not what we wanted it smaller. And I think Brad was right. He said that he wanted the basement to reflect the footprint of the house. So the basement then had to be redesigned so that it looked like it actually would fit under the house set that we did, that looks like it matches the location that we found. There were 3 large sets. It was the house complex, which was the whole first floor, stairways, kitchens, front windows, backings all around. There was the basement, which just had a lot of detail in. You know, the pivoting glass windows and all the joists running up, and the shaft set, the reactor shaft. The shaft was conceived as an 80-foot shaft, 40 feet up and 40 feet below, with a big turbine fan blowing this cooling, high-pressure air down through the shaft, 80 feet down to the fusion reactor below. But our stages are only 20 feet high, 22 feet high to be exact. We could only build 20 feet of the shaft, which was the start of our problems, because it meant that we were going to have to do green screen looking up and green screen looking down for the extra 40 feet in each direction. Since again our stage was only 22 feet, our set was 2 feet from the ceiling, and they couldn't light. They couldn't light from the top because of that, and they now couldn't light from the bottom. So what we had to do is go back to the design and clip the ceiling of the shaft at the top, so that when we filmed from the bottom, the actors were against part of our set. So we ended up making a clip, and at the bottom we put a whole 4-foot border of mirrors. So when the camera tipped down, we got at least an extra 8 to 10 feet of set that was reflected in the mirrors. From the mirrors below was CGI, which is the rest of the way down into the fusion reactor, and from the clip up, again CGI up to the turbine fan. So we never built the turbine fan, and we never built the giant doors that close at the bottom of the shaft. So ultimately we succeeded, but not without a lot of metal. It was a very heavy set.
Wow. Sarah, you're gonna grow up very fast. You are the third generation of something very special.
We have said to Mr. X Effects is we want them to look at what we've got, the scenes that we've got, and use whatever the most up-to-date techniques, because this technology is moving forward all the time. So they are bringing a lot to the screen. They're going to see what we've got, put more into the movie than we had originally intended.
One of the MGM production executives gave us a call. We had been working with Stan Winston, and Stan thought that we'd be a good part of the team because there's a strong makeup effects component to this show, and there's also digital environments, and so Stan thought of us and recommended us.
We have set extension and some wire removal and things like that, and we're also probably enhancing Sarah's face and the monster's faces a little bit through you know, the wonders of CG technology.
There was a lot of little shots that hopefully as a viewer you won't notice. That's one of our goals as digital effects artists, is to just enhance the image here and there, sweeten it up, and not draw attention to itself. Sarah transitioned into her creature mode, and she approaches the guard tower, and a guard steps out to approach her, and she basically slices him in half with one swipe of his tentacle. The design and integration of a lot of the effects was done in tandem with Rob Hindestein and our company, Mr. X. We took a lot of Rob's textures off of his suit and we scanned them digitally so that we you know, were true to his paint and his design. And so there was a great collaboration there. He would rely on us for certain things and we would rely on him for certain things. The way to really do a movie of this sort is to take advantage of the best of great makeup and effects, prosthetic effects, practical effects, and to take advantage of the digital effects in a hybrid approach. That way you're not really limited by anything. You can almost do anything.
That was one of the challenges, to make everything look absolutely realistic and believable, and make everything look like it belonged there.
The idea was to show this being can change and will change, and that something's coming. Brad was really big on subtlety. He thought that sometimes it's better to show less and let the audience fill in as a more powerful way of telling certain points. The story point there was to try and sort of foreshadow the creature within Sarah and to give a sense of what the transformation might be. We probably spent the most design cycles on this movie in figuring out the inner workings of the muscles. Frank and Brad wanted a bit of almost a metallic, sort of high-tech look. Have like tentacles which extrapolate at that shoot out and articulate, and we've got spikes that can grow out of fingers. We've got eyes that you know, that have sort of a luminosity about them and that move in funny ways. We've got this ability for these creatures to regenerate.
Oh my God.
You don't have the ability with practical effects, makeup, and prosthetics to be doing skin regeneration. Overall in the film there were about 100 visual effects.
happened?
There was an application that said that if it was a female-driven monster movie, that it had to distinguish itself from a male monster movie. Vampire movies are kind of sexy. So the genres I didn't think were mutually exclusive, and I thought that they spoke to each other relatively well. The key was to be able to create a creature that I felt like was sexy.
Frank and MGM wanted to go a different direction than Giger or Geiger Designs. It wasn't as much trying to stay away from that as we wanted something a bit different, because this species is a different species. Sunny's a new breed. She's something very much different than Syl was originally. So it wasn't a budgetary or copyright issue. It was more, we want to go a different direction.
This was a change of the guards. They wanted something new, something that could go from here on its own, something that wasn't dictated by what had been done before, which gave us a lot of freedom to design outside of the box. And that's what Frank wanted. He wanted something that was not the same thing we'd seen already.
Rob came in with some designs that he had worked through his shop, and we liked them. And with not very much modification, we went with his vision of what Sarah would look like.
It had to also share elements of the first two films. You know, it had to have the same flavor. We wanted to go with something that was more of a departure from the first two films, but still stay within the realm of being a combination that's very organic and very metallic. When discussing the designs with Mancuso and with the director, we wanted something that looked like it could be in silhouette just a female form. Something that looked beautiful, looked sleek. The design for the face and the hair had to look like it was a female in profile. So we designed something that kept her facial features very feminine, very small. Her body itself was designed around the stunt woman, so it was very thin latex suit, because they wanted something that could move quickly, that could move stealthily, that didn't look like it had a lot of mechanical parts to it.
Rob Henderson, who created the suits, went out of his way to make them work for us stunt-wise. Once you're within the suits, and they can be quite hot, they were made so the stunt performers could do the actual stunts in them. That was always first and foremost in our minds, as well as Rob's.
It's not too bad. It's actually pretty comfortable. Yeah. I thought it'd be hotter. It's not that hot. You know, when we're not working, we can open it up, bend it out a little bit.
You want to help her take this off? I would do it, but I'm at a break. We were given one suit per effect. The suit for the primary female character was the stunt suit, which was also the hero suit, which was also the close-up suit. It also required that two separate people had to wear the same suit. A taller stunt woman for a lot of the running scenes, and a shorter stunt woman who was trained to do all of the physical effects. So one suit had to capacitate all three of those needs. In addition to each one of those multi-purpose suits, we had an animatronic puppet for strictly head and shoulder close-up stuff. We built 3 suits and 3 puppets. We don't actually use the Amelia suit in the film that was cut. So we only have we have a Sarah suit, and we have a Yosef suit, then we have a Yosef puppet, head and shoulders, then we have a Sarah puppet, which is head down to waist, and then we have an Amelia puppet. Those are the 3 new creatures in the movie that are a departure from the first 2. Genetically, they're a higher species. The male obviously is a lot bigger, more impending, bigger teeth, bigger head. A lot beefier. She's a lot more streamlined. Yosef is the next step up, and then Sarah is several steps above that on the evolutionary food chain.
Well, we're getting ready to do a close-up on the hero puppet, so we're just doing some last-minute touch-ups on the face visually in terms of the paint, makeup, and color and stuff like that. And I think we're going to be adding some sort of sliminess shortly, too. As mechanics or as engineers, we're given the list of what this puppet is supposed to do, and we design the mechanical innards of the puppets, come up with the right ways to fit everything inside the head and make sure everything works. The eyes were particularly challenging on these puppets because they were sculpted at quite extreme angles, so that was challenging.
Knowing that the first 2 movies dealt with a lot of tentacles and a lot of things shooting out and a lot of, the quick fright elements that had been kind of ingrained in our heads, we knew that whatever we designed to come out of her had to look like it was actually inside of her. When you design an effect like that, you usually have 3 or 4 heads, and each head would do a separate function. We had to put all of those functions into one head. And that was the toughest thing, and that was the most difficult. She's got lip movement and brow movement and eye blinks, and then each one of the tentacles is animatronic tentacle, and then she has puppeteerable arms. This is all the close-up shots of, head turns and snarls into the camera, and, we don't have LEDs on the actress because it's a stunt suit. Any of the tentacles that need to move, anything that really has to be closer than a stunt suit. Like myself and my partner, Joel, had worked on the other films. We knew what worked and what we knew what didn't work, and with that in mind, we came in and we were able to do new things.
Amelia and Yosef both had alien deterioration makeups applied to them. They were a combination of burns. I did a bunch of computer designs in the beginning and showed Frank, and he picked the ones that he thought was most appropriate. It took about 3 hours to apply any one of those makeups with 2 artists working. And on any given day we'd have a double, so we'd bring in more artists for that.
Every day that we shot the suit, we would spend an hour and a half after we shot and wrapped to refurbish the suit as best as it could be refurbished. We ended up having 3 suits and 3 heads, and that was it for the entire film. And those 3 suits and those 3 heads had to take all of the abuse in that month of shooting that they could get away with. And once those suits ripped or broke, that was it. Aside from trying to patch it, it was, you spray paint it black and you hope the audience doesn't see it, and you keep going. When you have a modest budget like we did on this show, you creatively have to figure your way out of a lot of effects that you just can't do. Effects that you want to give the producer and the director because they could be really interesting effects, but that you don't have the money for. I have to really, give my crew the credit where credit is due, because we worked really long hours, and a lot of these guys came in and did the work because they wanted to do it, knowing full well that they weren't going to make their rates, but that this was going to be a fun job and we were going to get to do a lot of creative things. And it was part of a franchise. It was part of this series of films.
He did a lot of things practically that we were planning on doing CG. For example, when Yosef bites the bat out of Dean's hand, it was a practical gag on that. A lot of the tentacle work going in and out of legs. When Portis explodes and all the tentacles come out of him, that was a practical effect. And all of these things, we didn't know how well they were going to work on set, and we always had the backup plan that we could CG anything and change anything we needed to, but a lot of that stuff is working, so Rob was batting them out of the park most of the time.
It was a really positive atmosphere because Frank and David Dwiggins, the producer, and Brad Turner, the director, really kind of gave us carte blanche to create, and they knew that we could solve a lot of problems with the budget. If they gave us parameters as what they wanted the effect to be, we could come up with ideas for that and creatively solve a lot of their problems. So they kind of let us, just go forward and create, and that's what we did. And it was a good experience, being able to just do that. That'll be edited, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.